Welcome to our deep dive, all about autism acceptance for adults.
Ooh, this is a good one.
It is,
Yeah.
and we have so much to cover.
Yeah, we do.
You guys sent us a ton of stuff.
Yeah, a really interesting mix.
Yeah, like personal blog posts,
Right.
articles,
Mm-hmm.
even like snippets from a mini-series,
Yeah.
but all kind of focusing on what it's like to navigate life on the spectrum as an adult.
Yeah, and it's amazing, like, the range of topics that are covered in this collection.
And that's a lot.
Sensory sensitivities,
Yeah.
workplace dynamics, relationships, and then even, like, the intersection of autism with things like epilepsy. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so fascinating.
But there's this one theme that just kept coming up over and over and over again.
Oh, absolutely. Like, an undercurrent running through everything.
Yeah.
Negative self-talk.
Yes, and we're going to talk all about where this negativity comes from,
Yeah.
how it impacts autistic adults, and how to break free.
Yeah, and I mean, just the sheer volume of material that you shared really suggests that this is something that resonates deeply with a lot of people
Absolutely.
in the autistic community.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of negative self-talk.
Okay.
One thing that really jumped out at me from all these different sources is just how often autistic adults are on the receiving end of like criticism
Yeah.
and judgment from other people. And these words, especially when repeated over time, they can carry a lot of weight.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the articles that you sent me used the phrase constant barrage to describe the negativity that many autistic people face on like a regular basis. It's like there's this pressure to conform to neurotypical standards, to mask autistic traits, and to basically like become someone you're not.
Like society's sending this message like you're not good enough as you are. You need to change.
You need to fit in.
Yeah, and it's so heartbreaking to read about the toll that this takes on people.
Yeah.
Like in their personal accounts.
Yeah.
Using words like anxiety, depression, and just low self-esteem.
Absolutely. And, this is where we see how that external criticism can then morph into this internalized negative self-talk.
Right. Because it's not just dealing with judgment from the outside world anymore.
Right.
It's dealing with those voices that have taken root in your own mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one blogger put it so powerfully.
Oh, yeah.
They said, what happens when these negative messages start to seep into our own minds? Feeling a constant stream of self-criticism and doubt.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
It's such a crucial question because those internalized messages, they can become so deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
They really impact a person's self-perception and their overall well-being.
It affects everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
It manifests as this relentless stream of self-criticism and doubt that just colors everything they do.
So instead of celebrating their strengths and their unique talents, they're focusing on all of their perceived flaws and shortcomings.
And then it can lead to fear of taking risks, avoiding social situations, and then ultimately it just reinforces those feelings of inadequacy.
Yes, and that brings us to a crucial point for this whole deep dive.
Okay.
This connection between negative self-talk and autism acceptance.
Right. It's not just about accepting yourself as an individual. It's about accepting your autism as this like fundamental part of who you are.
One blog post that I read talked about this pressure to pass as neurotypical.
Oh, wow.
And this person said, it's exhausting and it feels like I'm living a lie.
Wow.
Really highlighting that emotional cost of masking.
And trying to suppress your natural autistic traits to fit in can be incredibly draining.
Yeah.
You're constantly trying to perform to fit into this mold that doesn't quite match your internal wiring.
Right.
And as we see in these sources, this constant masking can lead to feelings of exhaustion, inauthenticity, and even burnout.
Yeah, so it's understandable why some autistic individuals struggle with self-acceptance.
Yeah.
They've been told directly or indirectly that they need to change.
Right.
That they need to be less autistic.
Be less to good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could lead to internalized negativity.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to understand that autism is not a defect.
Right.
It's a difference.
It's just a different way of experiencing the world.
Right. And it brings its own strengths, challenges, and valuable insights.
But what about those sources that talk about the downsides of stimming?
Oh, yeah.
Like one article mentioned that while stimming is a natural way for autistic individuals to self-regulate, sometimes it's important to be mindful of the environment.
Yeah.
And, adjust your behavior accordingly.
That's a good point. And, stimming is such a valuable coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But sometimes we do need to adapt our behavior to different social contexts. And, it's important to recognize that that can be a really difficult balance for autistic individuals.
Especially when they've internalized these messages.
Right.
That stimming is weird or inappropriate.
Exactly.
So it all comes back to that self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And finding that balance between honoring your authentic self and navigating a world that isn't always understanding or accommodating.
Absolutely. And that's where the empowering part of our deep dive comes in,
Okay.
which are all of the strategies for breaking free from this cycle of negative self-talk.
Right.
And the sources offer a whole range of techniques that can be really, really helpful for autistic adults who are seeking to cultivate a more positive self-image.
Let's talk about some of those strategies because it seems like there's a lot we can learn from the experiences and insights that were shared in these sources.
Absolutely. One of the most powerful techniques that kept coming up is self-compassion.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really about treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and patience that you would offer to a loved one.
It's so easy to be hard on ourselves.
Oh, absolutely, especially when we've internalized so much negativity over the years.
Right.
But practicing self-compassion, it's like building this inner sanctuary where you can find solace and acceptance.
It's about recognizing that you are worthy of love and kindness.
Yes.
Regardless of your perceived flaws or challenges.
Absolutely. And, a key part of self-compassion is challenging those negative thoughts head on.
Yeah, so instead of letting those self-critical voices just run wild, you stop and you question their validity.
Right.
Like putting those thoughts under a magnifying glass and asking yourself, is this really true?
Yeah.
Is this how I would talk to a friend?
Right.
What's a more realistic and compassionate way to view this situation?
Exactly. It's about reframing those negative thoughts into something more positive and empowering.
So instead of, I'm not good enough, I'm doing my best, and that's what matters.
Yeah. And, recognizing that making mistakes is part of being human.
Yeah.
It doesn't diminish your worth or value.
And one article even pointed out that for autistic individuals,
those
mistakes might actually be rooted in a different way of processing social cues or interpreting information.
Right. And that leads us to another important strategy.
Okay.
Focusing on your strengths.
Yeah.
Celebrating those unique talents and abilities that come with being autistic. Often the very traits that are perceived as different or challenging can also be sources of incredible strength and creativity.
Yeah. I mean, several of the blog posts that we read talked about how their autistic traits, like their intense focus or their attention to detail, actually help them excel in their chosen fields.
It's like flipping the script.
Right.
And recognizing that what makes you different can also make you exceptional.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that neurodiversity is a valuable asset.
Yes.
Not a liability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even with all these strategies for cultivating self-love, it's important to acknowledge that the world isn't always designed to accommodate autistic needs.
Right. And some of the sources use this term autism tax to describe that.
Can you explain what that means?
Yeah. Could you break that down for our listener who might not be familiar with that term?
Yeah. So the autism tax refers to that extra effort, energy, and resources that autistic individuals often have to expend to navigate a world that's not really built for them.
Could you give us some specific examples of what that might look like?
Sure. So one blogger described the autism tax as this constant mental calculation that she has to make in social situations.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to decipher unspoken rules and expectations.
Right. Like, what am I supposed to do here?
Exactly. And then another person talked about the financial cost of needing specialized therapy or sensory tools that aren't covered by insurance.
So it's like this invisible burden on top of the everyday challenges everyone faces.
Right. And this is where the importance of community comes in.
Yeah.
The sources consistently emphasize the power of surrounding yourself with positive influences, supportive communities, mentors, role models.
Right.
Celebrate neurodiversity and offer encouragement.
So it's about finding your tribe.
Yes.
The people who get you, appreciate your authentic self, and offer a sense of belonging.
And validation.
Yes. And several of the blog posts mentioned online support groups.
Oh, yeah.
As being like a safe space to share experiences and connect with others who understand.
Those connections can be so powerful because they remind you that you're not alone in this journey.
Now, speaking of the journey,
yes,
a lot of these sources focus on personal experience.
Right.
But some also kind of delve into these broader societal issues.
Yeah.
Like the concept of religious trauma syndrome.
Oh, wow.
Particularly within certain religious communities.
That's a really sensitive but important topic to address.
It is.
You know, some of the sources highlighted how rigid doctrines and practices within certain religious groups can be really challenging for autistic individuals.
Yeah.
Leading to feelings of guilt, shame, even spiritual abuse.
One article talked about how the emphasis on social conformity and strict adherence to rules within her religious community created a lot of anxiety and pressure for her as an autistic person.
And it's important to remember that we're not making judgments about any particular religion or belief system.
Of course.
It's about acknowledging that the intersection of autism and religion can be complex.
Yes.
And that certain religious environments may not be supportive or inclusive of neurodiversity.
Right. Everyone's spiritual journey is unique.
Yeah.
And autistic individuals should feel safe and accepted.
Absolutely.
Within their chosen faith communities. Yeah. Just like everyone else.
Now, while navigating these external challenges is crucial, the sources also celebrate the incredible resilience and achievements of autistic adults.
Yes. It's not just about overcoming obstacles.
Right.
It's about recognizing and celebrating.
Yes.
The unique contributions that autistic individuals make to society.
What's truly inspiring is how these sources highlight autistic individuals, breaking barriers, making their mark in various fields. You know, they show us the power of neurodiversity and the importance of creating a society that values different ways of thinking and being.
We see autistic entrepreneurs creating successful businesses, autistic artists expressing themselves in powerful ways, and autistic advocates fighting for inclusivity and acceptance.
It's a powerful reminder that autism doesn't have to limit your potential.
Right.
It can actually be a source of incredible strength and innovation.
And this brings us to a really crucial point that's woven throughout all of these sources.
Okay.
This call for greater understanding and acceptance of autistic adults.
Yeah, it's about moving beyond awareness to genuine acceptance.
So it's not just about knowing that autism exists.
Right.
It's about understanding and valuing the unique perspectives and contributions of autistic individuals.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that autism isn't something to be fixed or cured, but rather it's a different way of experiencing the world that brings its own strengths, challenges, and valuable insights.
And that shift from awareness to acceptance requires a willingness to listen to autistic voices, to learn from their experiences, and create spaces where they feel safe, respected,
absolutely,
and empowered to be their authentic selves.
Several of the sources talk about the importance of autistic self-advocacy and the need for more autistic representation in decision-making processes that affect their lives.
So true inclusion means valuing diversity in all its forms. And that includes neurodiversity.
And this brings us back to the power of negative self-talk and the importance of breaking free from its grip.
Because when autistic individuals are constantly bombarded with messages that they're less than or broken, it erodes their self-esteem and it hinders their ability to embrace their true selves.
It's this constant internal battle trying to reconcile who you are with who you're told you should be.
Right.
And it can be incredibly draining and demoralizing.
But these sources offer a message of hope.
Yes, they do.
They highlight the power of self-compassion, challenging negative thoughts, and surrounding yourself with a supportive community. They show us that true autism acceptance starts with self-acceptance.
It does.
It's about learning to love and value yourself. Autism and all.
And all. And recognizing that your neurodiversity is a source of strength.
Not shame.
Not shame.
So while these sources delve into some challenging topics, they ultimately leave us with a sense of empowerment.
They do.
Reminding us that change is possible. Both individually and collectively.
Absolutely.
What are some of the specific challenges and triumphs that stood out to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. One of the things that really stood out to me was this whole discussion about the unique challenges that are faced by autistic women.
Oh, absolutely.
Several sources mention how gender stereotypes and a lack of awareness often lead to misdiagnoses or even like completely misdiagnoses.
It's true. And historically, autism research and the diagnostic criteria have been so based on male presentations, which makes it harder for women to get the recognition and support that they need.
Yeah, and one of the bloggers described her experience of being diagnosed with anxiety and depression for years.
Oh, wow.
Before finally receiving an autism diagnosis.
In adulthood.
As an adult, yeah. And she talked about how masking her autistic traits to fit in really took a toll on her mental health.
It's a good reminder that autism presents differently in everyone.
Yeah.
And that we need to be more inclusive in our understanding and diagnosis of this complex condition.
For sure.
Now, another fascinating aspect that was explored in these sources is sensory sensitivities.
Yeah.
One article really delved into how autistic individuals experience the world in a fundamentally different way.
Right.
Often with heightened sensory input that can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Or even painful.
Right. And this is where the importance of stimming comes in.
Yeah, because some people might view stimming as odd or distracting.
Right.
But it's actually such a natural way for autistic individuals to self-regulate and cope with that sensory overload.
Absolutely. One blogger describes stimming as her secret weapon.
Oh, I love that.
I know, for managing anxiety and staying grounded in overwhelming situations.
It's amazing how something that might be perceived as a negative behavior can actually be such a valuable coping mechanism.
Exactly. And, you know, it highlights the need for greater understanding and acceptance of neurodiversity. Instead of trying to suppress or eliminate these natural behaviors, what if we focused on creating environments that are more sensory friendly and accommodating of those different needs?
That's a great point.
Thank you.
And while we're kind of on this topic of challenging perceptions, several of the sources discussed the often misunderstood nature of autistic meltdown.
Oh, yeah. Meltdowns are often seen as tantrums or attention-seeking behavior.
Right.
But they're actually a neurological response to overwhelming stress or sensory overload.
Right. It's like the brain's circuit breaker flipping when it just can't handle any more input.
Exactly. One blogger described her meltdowns as feeling like a complete loss of control.
Oh, wow.
Like her body was being hijacked by her emotions. And she stressed the importance of having those compassionate support systems in place to help navigate those really difficult moments.
It's so crucial to recognize that meltdowns are not a sign of weakness or bad behavior.
No.
They're a natural response to overwhelming circumstances.
And instead of judging or punishing autistic individuals for having meltdowns, we should focus on creating environments that minimize those triggers. And provide support during those challenging moments.
Absolutely. And I think that leads us back beautifully to this idea that true autism acceptance starts with self-acceptance.
It does.
Learning to love and value yourself. Autism and all.
Autism and all.
And recognizing that your neurodiversity is a source of strength. Not shame.
Not shame. And it's about surrounding yourself with people who understand and celebrate your unique way of being in the world.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm so struck by the incredible diversity
Oh, yeah.
within the autistic community.
It's amazing.
These sources have shown us there's no one right way to be autistic.
And that's the beauty of neurodiversity.
It is.
You know, recognizing that neurological differences like autism are a natural part of human variation, just like diversity in race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation.
It's about embracing the full spectrum of human cognitive abilities.
And recognizing that there's no one normal way to think, learn, or experience the world.
And this shift from a deficit-based model to a strengths-based model of autism is so important.
It is.
Instead of focusing on what autistic individuals supposedly can't do, what if we celebrated their unique talents and abilities?
I think that's a powerful message to leave our listeners with.
Yeah, what do you think?
Instead of seeing your autism as something to hide or change, embrace it as a source of strength. And a different way of experiencing the world that brings its own valuable perspective.
Absolutely. And remember, you are not alone on this journey.
You are not.
There are communities, resources, and people who understand and celebrate the incredible person you are.
Thanks for joining us
on this deep dive
into the world of autism acceptance.
We hope these insights have sparked some new thoughts and encouraged you to continue exploring this important topic.